Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Austin from UPHOLD. Just get 2 minutes to let some more people trickle in. And Dominic, I have invited you to be a speaker. Let me know if you're having any issues. And then IOTA, also inviting you up as a speaker. And we'll get started here shortly.
All right, radio hates the silence.
The
Well,
radio hates
even though we are
silence.
waiting, right? Silence is getting me. Welcome, Dominic. Welcome, Stefan of IOTA fame. And I'm going to start us off to give other people time to join with a little anecdote. A full 14 years ago, I was in Hong Kong. I think it was around that time, but it might have been February. I was in New York and I gave a speech. I was then a trade emissary of the European Union, and I was talking technology all over Asia, Singapore, Taiwan, Hong Kong. And I gave a speech that somebody had basically forced me to do last minute. I had cobbled together some pieces from Singapore. I gave a speech, and it was entitled "Blockchain is the most disruptive innovation since the internet." It was followed by all I could think of, like possibly blockchain could one day be doing. And after I'd finished, I met two people from IOTA. I can't remember either of their names. It was so long ago. But we had a long conversation about what IOTA thought that blockchain should be. And it greatly shaped my understanding of what we should do with blockchain. Now we've suffered for 10 years of and craziness and crypto circus. But I think ever since institutions got involved more after the ETFs launched, crypto is now really a serious business. And nothing comes close to the seriousness of the Germans in this business. Dom, Stefan, you've both been with IOTA for quite a while. Why don't you tell us about your journey to IOTA?
Hey, Martin.
Yes.
Very nice to speak with you again. Um, yeah, I mean, obviously, I've been in the whole crypto space since 2011, right? So since the very early
It might
days.
have been
And
you.
what always
Can you remember? Were you in Hong Kong? It might have been you. I have a vague memory.
I was in Shanghai back then,
It
because
must
like
have
funny
been
enough,
you.
like
It could have been Shanghai, and we met. Oh my God,
yeah,
time flies. Please continue. Sorry to interrupt.
yeah, yeah, it could be because back then I was, before I helped to create IOTA, I actually built a supply chain application in the first Ethereum hackathon back in, I think it was 2014. So and basically what it did is was putting trade finance on chain, and Vitalik was there as well as one of the judges and other
I
people, and
remember
so I
that.
ended
Yeah.
up winning that hackathon. Yeah, and it was called Cargo Chain. And it's kind of funny that now we're basically going full circle to what I did like
It
12,
is.
13 years
I feel
ago.
the same because my presentation was full of things that now people are building projects to make. It's amazing. It's a funny feeling.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So you have on your X profile, I just saw sovereign infrastructure. What's the philosophy of IOTA? Why are you still around after all this
Um,
time?
yeah, it, I think it's very ideological why I'm part of IOTA and why we founded IOTA, and I think that's really what sets us apart from other projects as well, because we didn't found IOTA back then to try and make as much money as possible for ourselves, right? Which would later happen with the ICO boom and especially with the DeFi and NFT craze. But we really founded IOTA to try and solve problems in the real world. And I've always said, like, hey, blockchain only makes sense once it actually gets adopted in the real world. And this was really like the founding ethos of IOTA as well, that we really want to achieve something and build something that's larger than ourselves, right? And not
That
just
sounds like the Uphold
make
mission
money. And
statement.
I hope so. I hope so. Uh, but it's really about building something and creating value for people, right? And not extracting value, because that is one of the things that really was also sad about how the whole crypto space evolved, right? Because it moved away from these early idealists, right? These visionary people in the Bitcoin talk forums and those kind of communities, where it was really about, hey, how can we actually change the world with this? How can we decentralize finance? How can we empower people with new technologies so they can be in control of their money and be in control of their wealth, right? And protect their data, protect their privacy, all of that. Like that was the founding ethos of many of these projects, including IOTA,
I had
right?
a
But we moved
conversation.
away from that.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I thought you were
Yeah. No,
wrapping
we
up.
like
I had a conversation with Fabian Vogelsteller, who you know, and he
yeah.
he once said that the ERC20 script sort of ushered in the lost decade of crypto, where we did a lot of stuff with
Yeah.
frogs, but we didn't. It looked like to the public and to regulators like we weren't really building something useful, right? But now we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And we're going back to that ethos, right? Where it is about doing stuff useful. So I have to be honest, right? Like the current market, and I've been part of every bull market and every bear market. And I can tell you, like, this was probably the most painful bear market in all of crypto, because in 2018 you could just wait and wait for the time to be over, right? Wait for the bear market to be over, and then you could continue on, right? Like, you, of course, back then, at first it was like, hey, what's this it? Because 2017 was the first big bull market, and obviously like IOTA was probably the biggest winner back then,
Mm.
right?
Yes, it was.
Of that bull market,
Yeah,
where we went number
yeah.
four. And obviously we really delivered in that regard. But after that, in 2018, it was really like this existential questioning as well, as like, hey, what is this, the end of crypto? But of course you continued on because we were still very
Mm.
early. The thing that's different with this market, and especially this bear market, is like the entire market has really been punished in ways that nobody expected, right? With what happened around 1010 and what happened with the altcoin market. And now it's really about the only way in which you will survive is if you build a new business out of your
How
token and out of your
beautifully said.
network that actually gets adopted in the real world.
How
And that's exactly what we
how
focus on in IOTA.
beautifully said.
Yeah.
I said that on Monday in a talk. There was a lot of experimentation around, and not everyone who experimented in blockchain had any ideals at all. And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, so it feels good to return to basics. Now, IOTA has always had a strong track record of development, but you weren't that visible. I think the last big news was the move to Dubai. Are you are you presenting the advantages and products that IOTA has created now? Are you going to do more marketing, or are you still prefer work behind the scenes?
I mean, like the like this is the most frustrating part about this crypto market, right? Because those that are being portrayed as successes are those that scream the loudest.
Yes.
And that is usually not the case, right? Because crypto so far has been a narrative and an attention driven market. And that is exactly everything that's wrong with this market, right? That is why we deserve this current bear market, because everybody was jumping on this meme coin craze, then it was some AI coin craze, and then there was some other nonsense stuff, which was basically the cycles were getting shorter and shorter and shorter. It was not about value creation. It was all about how can you get as much attention as quickly as
Yeah.
possible, right? And so we at IOTA, I really want us to stay focused on creating value first and foremost, because if you create value, everything else will fall into place. And I do think that we have played some of these games in the past as well, and we have gotten a lot of attention.
Uh,
Um, but at the same time, the only thing that fundamentally matters right now is how much traction do you have on chain, and how unique is your business, right? The businesses that you're building on top of your network, because every layer one kind of does the same at this point, right? But you need to really differentiate yourselves. And I think with IOTA, we found a clear niche and a clear focus around cross-border trade and around the tokenization of physical assets and trade finance that no other layer one is really pursuing. And so right now it's really about capitalizing that and bringing all of that economic value on chain, rather than trying to get some influencers on Twitter to talk
mm.
about IOTA.
So in trade finance, you've mentioned this a couple of times. There are other projects out there like XDC and people claim that trade finance is their focus, and the applications for
Yeah.
blockchain in trade are just enormous because it is. If you've lived abroad, you know in trade how much paperwork is involved and how error prone the whole system is and corruption prone the whole system is, because you're basically shifting around documents stamped and sealed documents. So blockchain would do a lot of good here, but are we now in a position to really make and to really press forward and change the world of trade finance? How does your approach to trade look with IOTA?
Yeah. So we started this entire endeavor working on trade in 2019, right? And we started this in Kenya, actually working with the government in Kenya, the revenue authorities and the port authorities, basically digitizing trade documents and data around the supply chain, putting it on chain, making it verifiable, making it immutable, so you can actually trust the data. So where others really focus on the finance part first, we focus on the boring part, which was the data part. Right? And because of that, we were able to get some really big names on board that are building this product together with us, which is called Twin, so twin.org. And we are positioning Twin as this trusted trade platform where we really focus on getting all of the data on chain so that it can be used to automate and improve the processes, like, for example, clearance at the border, improve efficiency also for the governments, but then also, very importantly, actually fund the trade finance deals, the trade flows themselves, so that you can trust the data that you receive, and then in turn you can fund the deal. So what we are doing, for example, in Africa at the moment, is we're tokenizing physical assets, like, for example, critical minerals or commodities like flowers and coffee, putting it on chain, right, by tokenizing the warehouse receipts or by tokenizing the trade receivables. And then in turn, we are connecting those traders with capital pools, including DeFi pools, where we are actually right now building up a new application on top of IOTA that makes these trade finance deals accessible in DeFi. And then we're connecting those capital pools with the deals and then funding those trades. And I think what we've really shown in those early pilots over the last 6 months is that we can bring down the cost of capital for the traders from sometimes 20 to 25% interest rate per year down to 12 to 15%, right? It's like a huge benefit for them. And in turn, it can also open up a new real yield opportunities within DeFi, because nobody else is actually able to pay the 10 to 15% real yield that we can pay, because it comes from the real economy. So I think there's a huge benefit by focusing first on the data part, but to make sure that we have the trust, and then second, focus on the cross-border payment side, and then focusing very much on trade finance.
I love it. I mean, DeFi is in trouble these days, as we've just seen last week with this hack, and there's been so much value destroyed. So the question for an academic like me is: we started out in the 90s with this desire to create sovereign computer networks that could manage themselves, and now we've got them, and they're being hacked and exploited. So, is the decentralized way really the safe way? A lot of philosophical things that are changing right now in crypto. So Twin runs on IOTA. Is it what does it look like? Is it an interface? Let's say I am here on my farm and I want to export a container of apples.
Yeah. So Twin is an application that runs on top of IOTA, right? Like, it's a set of smart contracts. And what those smart contracts do today is 3, or I would say 4 different, let's call it a product suite, right? So Twin has a product suite. One is the data side, where we're digitizing the trade documents, and that is effectively leveraging the IOTA ledger to create NFTs for each of the trade documents, so they're really verifiable, and you can really prove that there's only one copy of it, and you can also prove that it belongs to a certain company. Right? So that's the first thing that we're doing. We're actually tokenizing these physical trade documents on top of the ledger. The second thing that we're doing is we are issuing digital identities for the traders. So those are verifiable credentials based on the W3C standards. And with that, a trader, a company, or a government agency can prove who they are in this network. And so what we focus on right now is we've issued those identities for traders, and we want to build up a public registry so that everybody around the world can then actually see, hey, like, this public key belongs to this company. they can start to identify themselves in these cross-border contexts, which is obviously hugely valuable because you don't know who you can trust in this global context. And this is exactly where a blockchain makes a lot of sense. And then the third thing that we're doing is we're doing stablecoin payments. We're actually working on natively integrating certain stablecoin providers so that we can actually enable cross-border trade to be funded entirely by stablecoin payments. And then the fourth thing that we're doing is tokenizing the physical assets and then making it possible to fund them. So all of that comes together on top of the IOTA network. And obviously, IOTA is the underlying infrastructure that makes Twin incredibly neutral. It makes it decentralized. It makes it open. And which is exactly the reason why we were able to get these governments and other large enterprises to trust us.
Sounds like a wonderful project. I'm just reading up on it. The TLIP, the Trade and Logistics Information Pipeline, connects East African exporters. That's just fantastic because it is a sovereign system that is not influenced by the nation and corruption. But now, don't misunderstand my question, Dom. I want to make a specific point. Why are we doing this there, and why are we not doing this in Kenya? And why didn't you do it with the port of Hamburg? What I want.
So first of all,
what I want with that is why are we taking so long in advanced countries to even consider alternatives like blockchain?
Yeah, it's always about decision making, right? Because I feel like like first of all, the big advantage that we had in Kenya is that Kenya has a single trade window system, right? So there's only one counterparty to interface primarily, right, and to integrate with. Of course, we are integrated with like different government agencies and systems as well, but having a single trade window system is really beneficial in that regard. So this is why Kenya was actually faster for us to integrate than other countries. That we are very advanced in the UK as well. So we work very closely with the Cabinet Office and have been working with different ports like Southampton and so on and so forth in the UK. But in the UK, there's all these different ports. So we need to integrate with each port individually. That means that somebody at the port needs to make a decision to use Twin. Now, of course, we've been doing those pilots in the UK for the last 2 years. For example, we've been shipping chicken from Poland to the UK and using Twin to track that. I think in total we've done around 5,000 consignments right now in this pilot. Now we obviously want to scale this up and increase this. But to concretely answer your question, it's easier for technology like ours to be adopted in emerging markets right now, simply because there's a clear need to innovate and to advance. And there's also clear decision makers there that are willing to make these bets, right? And I feel like in developed countries, we always have this attitude of if it works, we don't want to change it. And so this is why we don't actually have this drive and this need to innovate in Germany, in Central Europe, which is obviously quite
because
quite a sad
things are
situation to
there
be
and
in.
they work, right? And you actually have to go to people and
Exactly.
prove to them that your option is cheaper and more economical and fairer, or whatever your selling point is. We have
Even if you do that, it's not enough, right? It's not
yeah.
enough, because you then need to convince these really large enterprises or government agencies to make these decisions, and it can take years to get somebody to actually make these decisions and prioritize it.
And then the company experiments with blockchain itself, and somebody wants a promotion and says, I can do that, we don't need them. And then they realize building a blockchain is not that easy or that cheap. That is a wonderful explanation of that. So, in case you missed it and you're listening in the UK, there's a chance that your Sunday chicken roast was on a blockchain. That is fantastic news. I think that is such real application of blockchain. I'm so happy. You just made me fantastically happy. So Twin and IOTA, but they're still separate, right? Twin is a separate company, a separate entity, and IOTA is the network. Do I understand this right?
Yeah, so IOTA is the underlying network, right? The infrastructure. We have the IOTA Foundation, which is based in Germany, and that's obviously where we do the core R&D. Twin is a separate entity. We set it up as a non-profit foundation in Geneva. So maybe for everybody's context, because we saw that trade is such a huge market, a huge complexity as well, right? Huge problems, that we cannot just do this alone. And so this is why we partnered with certain entities, like, for example, the World Economic Forum, like the Tony Blair Institute, Trademark Africa, Global Institute of Export, and others, to actually set up a non-profit foundation in Switzerland, in Geneva, to host the open source code that we've developed in order to secure the data and sort of like those building blocks that make up Twin. And now we're really in this next phase where we're figuring out how we can increase our commitment from IOTA to Twin, because we really see this as the premier application that is going to make IOTA a success as well, and bring a lot of volume, a lot of tokenized assets, and a lot of deal flow on chain. And so we're really working on accelerating this path that we have with Twin by setting up these entities.
As you can hear,
But it's a separate structure to IOTA.
as you can hear, listeners, crypto isn't over. We're just getting started for real now. We are early,
Yeah.
right? We had 10 years of funny stuff, and now where we had the time to experiment, as I call it, in the sandbox. But now we've grown up. We have to go to work for real. So I've got my chicken dinner sorted on the blockchain. Now, what if I want my entire Asta or my, where do I go shopping? Marks and Spencers, right? Marks and Spencers. What is the end game here? When will everything be on blockchain, and how will it look like?
Yeah, obviously our big objective is right now data, because once we have the data, we really solve a big pain point for the government, and which in turn means that we are getting integrated as the primary solution for them to also accept these digital trade documents. So this is really like our go-to-market strategy so far. What we're doing next, though, is we're really getting the trade flows themselves on chain, right? Either by tokenizing the assets. So we've done this in Africa so far, tokenizing a couple $1 million worth of critical minerals. But obviously we want to scale this up to include all sorts of commodities. So there's some legal barriers that we still need to overcome, right? Like how do we tokenize assets in certain jurisdictions, right? Like what is the legal framework and the regulatory framework for that? And because obviously you want to tie the digital asset with the physical asset, right? So this is something that we're working on at the moment. And the other thing that we want to work on quite diligently at the moment is cross-border payments. But this is the main use case of stablecoins, and stablecoins really have found product market fit in the blockchain space. And we really see ourselves as a distribution channel to actually make it possible for traders that are facilitating cross-border trade to actually do that with stablecoins. So we then want to bring the entire supply chain on chain, right? First securing the data, so you can have this chain of custody where the goods have been, then actually including the payments so that the importer pays the exporter, and then also the government payments and things like that, and then also including the trade finance part. So we're really bringing all of that on chain and doing that all in one network.
I have a question. XDC does that. I was personally involved with Cardano, who tokenized a winery in Georgia. Remember that? I'm sure you remember when Cardano did this Georgia winery thing. There are many people, and Vitalik keeps yelling, Ethereum can do it all. Is it really a matter of which blockchain is going to win, or are we looking at the future of many, many different blockchains who just have to talk to each other? What is your vision of the blockchain itself?
I mean, we're talking about a market that is worth, I don't know, 30, 40 trillion dollars every year, right? And we're talking about a funding gap that is $2.5 trillion, right? Just in trade finance.
So there's room for everyone.
So I think, yeah, there's room for everyone. I think this is such a huge market to solve, where I think it's really good that there's also others in this market. I don't think there's anybody that is really competing on the same level as us, because we are the only ones that are really working with the governments, right? And that are actually being integrated into these governments, right? We're talking about Kenya, where we're rolling it out into production. We're talking about this expansion across the entire African continent with our partnership with ADAP. We're talking about the UK integration as well.
Fantastic.
We're also entering new countries in Southeast Asia, right? So we're really conquering country by country, and we are really going through this very slow and painful government sales cycles, because we believe that is our moat. So we can really build a defensible business that nobody else can actually replicate, right? And if you remember, this is also why we created this German nonprofit foundation back in the day, to get the trust of the enterprise.
And you stayed under the radar, and an absolutely fantastic success story.
Well, we still have to make it a big success story, right? But obviously, perseverance is success in and of itself. And I really believe that what we are doing here is we're bringing a real business on chain, which in turn will really make IOTA also a big success, because then we have real trade flows, real users on the network, and also make it possible for everybody else to participate in funding these trade flows. and earn yield. So I think that's really the big opportunity that we have with IOTA here.
Dominic, Stefan, people of Twin and IOTA, you have made my day. I'm looking forward of Uphold exploring how we can work together and really make a difference in the real world. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Martin.
Do we have anything else on the agenda, Austin?
No, I think that was all. Yeah, I guess just again a huge thank you to Dom for joining us today. After this conversation, it also makes me happy. It seems like we're moving past the long history of speculation, and we're finally starting to see some real world utility coming to life. So just a quick shout out. At Uphold, we are committed to education and execution. So to stay updated on our latest developments, make sure you're following Uphold Inc., Uphold Markets, and our head of research, Dr. Martin Hisbook. And again, a special shout out to Dom and her friends at IOTA and Twin Global Org for the incredible work that they're doing to bring global trade on chain. And just one last thing for any sophisticated investor or trader looking to learn more about Uphold's institutional desk, which is called Uphold Ascent, please visit uphold.com/OTC. That's uphold.com/OTC. Or you can reach out directly to our team via our email, institutional@uphold.com. And just again, thanks for being here, everyone in the crowd, Dom, IOTA, Dr. Martin, and we need to do this again. So let's plan something for later in the year to see how IOTA finishes out the year strong and what the plans for the future entail.
Wonderful, Austin.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you for
guys.
hosting us. Yeah, thank you, Austin. Yep. Thank you, Martin. Bye-bye.
Yep, bye-bye. Cheers.